Good morning, everybody. I'm Ed Parcaut here at Bobby Atkins, and we are the Veterans Edition of Real Estate Jerky. Must be Thursday.
It is, man. How you doing?
Doing good. Kind of want to go over, it was brought up about open houses, about which I didn't know because I've been to open houses forever. It's not one of the places I go to talk to agents. I think they're there for one reason, which is to sell the house. I don't need to be there trying to get their business. Yeah. But that's just my take on it. Yeah. Just like I don't like title reps come into my office. Because I don't have control over what I use for title, right? So, so I don't take that wrong. It's just that, I go to work. I go to work, and I expect other people go to work. So I don't want to bother you during that period of time. So what's new at open houses? What is there stuff about a buyer broker agreement, the signing of the list to go through the house stuff?
Yeah. So there's been a lot of changes since July, right? When the buyer broker agreement came into official effect. So we've actually had it for like 20 years. But most people just never used it, right? Which is kind of to our detriment on as far as an agent, right? Like, because it used to be as a buyer's agent, you could show a client all these houses and have no commitment. Then they go to open house and the agent's like, hey, I can get your offer accepted. You write it with me. And then you get your client stolen from you, right? So, so now the buyer broker agreement.
No, they're fine with it. Just they'll be happy that you found a home.
Yeah. Oh yeah, gosh, yeah.
That's what they would say.
Yeah. Guess what? We got in contract. Go good for you, not for me.
No, again, back to this whole thing is in our industry, some people are loyal, some people aren't.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And some people take advantage and some don't. So just be careful. That's all I wanted to say. Go ahead.
And and that ends up in the ethics area, right? But
but they don't. Sometimes people have different ethics.
Yeah. Now, so back to what we were talking about with the buyer broker agreement, right? It was basically saying like, hey, now
what is a buyer broker agreement for people who don't understand the first time listening?
Sure. Yeah. So buyer broker agreement says that I, as a buyer's agent, right, if I'm showing you homes, you're agreeing to commit to me and that you're not going to work with any other agents. That way I can eventually get paid after we've gone through the whole process, get you in contract.
Because you only get paid when you close on the transaction.
Once we close, yeah. So it's interesting. In Canada, agents up there, it's easy peasy, man. They get paid once they get in contract, and then they're off. They hand it off to a lawyer. I was like, man, I need to go to do real estate in Canada. But so anyway, what's different about it now that's revised since July is that if the seller isn't paying a commission to the buyer's agent, then the buyer has to pay that. And so that's normally what we talk about. I mean, first and foremost, like, right, we do a buyer consultation and say, hey, I don't work for free, even though I like you, and so if the house you want to buy is not going to pay me for my work, then I'm going to need you to pay me. And so we go through that. But now the next thing that's changed, and it's constantly changing this year, is the open houses.
All right, before you get in there, I want to back up a second. All right, so in Canada, you get paid the moment you get into contract,
and then they hand it off to lawyers. Yeah.
So what if it falls out?
I don't know, man.
That's my question. What if it falls out?
I don't know.
And then the buyer broker agreement, I want to just a lot of times people think that this is new, and 9 times out of 10, it's a normal transaction. The seller's paying the buyer's side. You don't need to worry about. There's just that one time. Well, that's happened in the past. I've had it where people are selling a house and they don't want to pay commissions on the other side or pay the buyer at all. They don't want to pay the listing of it at all. They don't want to pay anybody any commissions. And I've had it where the buyer in the past, this is in the last 10 years, had to pay that commission. Yeah. So it's nothing really new. It's just how it is explained is what's new. That's kind of how I'm taking it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because most people don't want to pay more money than they need to get their house sold. Right. I mean, that's pretty common sense. But I've heard a few occasions where sellers are saying they're not going to pay, or they're going to do like 1%. In that case, then you would tell your buyer, hey, if I'm working for 3%,
right, you're paying too.
You got to pay the other 2.
Yeah.
But so you're required to sign into open houses. And so originally it was almost an exclusive agreement that you were signing with the person holding the open house. They've revised it now. It's the verbiage is much more simple, and it just says, hey, look, you're stating you came through this open house. We don't have an exclusive agreement unless you want to create one. So the problem was you'd have your clients, if you couldn't go through the open house, they signed this, and now they had, an exclusive agreement with the person. It was a mess.
Yeah, because that means that if they wanted that house, they had to go through the listing agent to go through that, or whoever was having the open house.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be the listing agent. Somebody else could be holding the open house also.
Yeah. And one of the things that we were going to talk about is it still good to have open houses, right?
Right.
And yes, it is. And the reason I say that is twofold. And normally I try and do open houses the first couple weekends. I put a listing on, and I do the open houses because, one, there's going to be a lot of interest in that specific house, and it's easier on the sellers, right? If I say I'm doing open house, from 12 to 2 Saturday and Sunday, then we can say, hey, hold off on scheduling showings, bring your clients to the open house. And that way, otherwise, you put a house on the market that's under 450, it's going to be a revolving door.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, another thing is, if you're going to say that, this place is going to have an open house over the weekend and you're writing your offer on Wednesday, I would shorten up the offer date.
Yeah.
And don't let them get to the weekend. Or answer back.
Make them regret not taking your offer if they don't get one, right?
Right. Well, I'm just saying, because a lot of them are like, I want to have this bird in the hand and go through the open houses. We'll get back to you after Saturday. Well, no, because you're waiting for a better offer. Because you can tell people, well, we have an offer in right now.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I tell people, just because the contract says these dates doesn't mean it has to be those dates. They don't do that on inspection periods. They knock those things down all the time. So why not do this on everyone? You have 24 hours, 48 hours to get back to us, because, this is the market where we're not going to wait around. There's not enough inventory. I'm not going to wait for you to say no.
Yeah. And, especially like during COVID, it was just a weird time. Everyone's trying to figure out. Right. But so often you would see, like in the confidential notes, it would say, offers are being reviewed on this day at this time, right? Submit your highest and best. And you can't put that in there now unless you have that in writing from the seller, right? So otherwise, contract says you're supposed to present the offers as they come in.
Right. And whatever that period of time it says.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless your seller says, I only want it if it's over this dollar amount. Because there used to be in the past where people were lowball you and you're like, you're not presenting your offer. But you have to. Not if my client told me if it doesn't meet this threshold, not to bring it to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, luckily nowadays people call us, and, we always try and understand where we're at, right? Like I had an investor one time call me, and he's like, I'm going to write you an offer for $350 cash. I'm like, well, you're way below our highest and best, so don't even waste your time. And they didn't write the offer. But gotta love that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The cash buyer.
Yeah, always. There's always a backup cash offer.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. So open house is still great. It's a more of a convenience for the seller, honestly. But it also allows people who aren't maybe in the market yet, that are interested, that don't have an agent, to come through.
Right. And also to really see if the pictures are correct.
Yeah. I mean,
because everything looks better in pictures.
Or you get a photographer that does like a super low angle from the corner of the room, makes it look like it's, a 2,000 square foot living room. But yeah, so my open house this weekend, the last person that came through, it was, it never fails. You turn all the lights off, you've locked up, you're walking out the front door, and someone comes up and you're like, yeah, come on in. Let me show you around. But they were across the street at the park, and they just saw there was an open house. They wanted to look at the house. So
there was a Chinese food restaurant that had a thing on their thing this is not open house. Don't come in at 10 minutes before close.
Yeah. Oh man, there was this one video of it was like a real estate humor one, right? And it was like these guys at open house, and they had champagne and all kinds of hors d'oeuvres and balloons, and they're just sitting there playing their board, like looking at their watch. As soon as they lock up, all of a sudden people start coming through. I'm like, it's so true.
Yeah, they wait till the last minute.
Yeah.
All right, Bobby, thanks for being here today. I want to thank everybody else for watching. Is there anything else you want to add before we go? I'm sorry, I should have asked before I just started taking off.
No. I think that sums it up, man.
Yeah, I mean, so go to open houses, but talk to your agent before you go. Make sure you have your buyer agreements in place for shopping. And first of all, and make sure you're pre-approved, because you shouldn't be out there shopping and looking at anything unless you're pre-approved and fully underwritten pre-approval. All right, everybody, make it a great day. Thanks for being here. Bobby, thanks for being here. You can reach out to Bobby at 209-550-1087. Remember, I'm Ed Parcaut everywhere. All right, thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Ed.